Dear colleagues, we continue. Please welcome Volodymyr Demchyshyn, Minister of Energy and Coal Industry of Ukraine, who will speak on preparations for the heating season this winter. Please. Good afternoon, colleagues. As the previous meeting procrastinated a bit, I'm starting a bit later. I have some slides prepared for today, and I will show you to these slides. Yeah. You can turn these ones at the moment off. Thank you. The reason I came here today is the preparations to the upcoming heating season, and I'd like to report on the results and achievements made so far. I want to deliver some key messages concerning our active preparations for the upcoming season, and I think and I hope that we'll make it without those across the board cut-offs of heating irrespective of the weather, and we will be able to provide every consumer with natural gas and heating. As of the moment, the market is still changing quite a lot compared with the previous year. Say, natural gas and energy consumption has drastically changed, and in 6 months we can see that almost 12% cut in electricity consumption. And this does not include the Crimea and the occupied territories of Donetsk and Luhansk regions. You can see the breakdown of data per industrial sectors and individual consumption by the population. You can see that most of the savings have been due to reduced consumption in the industrial sector. Surely we can say of potentially negative consequences for the industries, for payrolls, for jobs, for budget accruals. But on the other hand, it's about certain loads on electricity systems, electric power transmission systems, and there are some indications that during the upcoming heating season we will need a bit less of the resources that we are preparing for it. And with a view of that, the reduction in consumption levels allow for certain conclusion that the coal stock that we are preparing for our power plants at the level of the previous year or level of the past 5 years season, it will be more or less adequate. And surely this added coal stock, coal reserve, will be of added value for comfortably living through the winter, even in the case when winter is a bit harsh than, say, in previous years. On the other hand, I think all of you heard of the new information about the El Niño current changes and about expectations of warmer winter this year. Still, we do not count on that, and we think it would be better off to have enough stock to cover the demand for heating. Here you can see the structure of energy generation for the period. We have managed to provide maximum load of our nuclear power sector. You see the increased output in our power energy production, atomic power production sector. We have increased the usage of nuclear power plants to 5–10%, and they provide relatively clean energy, and the capacities we have, the generating capacities we have, do not have any additional workload in our logistics systems, and it is about operating same power plants with the same resources, but the gains we achieved have been due to better management of these and reaching nearly zero expenditures on that. First of all, it is about reducing exploitation costs without putting at risk reliability and safety. And we are building a 750 kilovolts transmission line from Rivne to Kyiv, and we are constantly monitoring that situation, the construction. I'm really willing to see this line brought into operation by early December, and this line will provide up to 1,000 megawatts to the center of the country, produced by Rivne and Khmelnytsk nuclear power plants. Before that, that capacity was never generated because of the lack of proper transmission lines. And you know that because of the decommissioning of the Chernobyl plant, the supply of electricity in the center of the country has been reduced somewhat, and in preparation for the winter we need some additional transmission capacities be available, and this clearly says about greater proportion of nuclear energy produced. The yellow rectangle is about the heat thermal plants and the electricity produced by these thermal plants. That's rather complex type of energy that is produced. It is about 2 times as expensive compared with the nuclear energy. But this is the way we try to balance tariffs. Here you can see our coal reserves, our coal stocks. This information that you see now, we will place it on our website and we'll update it on a monthly basis to show the public what progresses have been made by our system, and people will be able to track changes. In this graph presents a comparison between the stocks and thermal power plants in 2014, I mean those that are under the control of Ukraine. And you have the red curve that shows indicators for 2015. You see that in the past 2 or 3 months we did manage to accumulate some additional coal, and if I am not mistaken, for the past 20 days we have already accumulated more than, or around 130,000 metric tons. You see that the stock in the past year was considerably higher, but what is important is that as of the start of the season in October, the stock was practically at the same level. That is, last year we entered the heating season with the stock at par with one that we have now, and now we are still accumulating more fuel. We plan to add about 1 million tons within the coming 3 months. Surely we have certain limitations and logistical constraints and funds. At the moment our generation companies and generation enterprises have not enough funds, and unfortunately, if last year we saw the cabinet deliver 2 billion hryvnias additionally to procure more coal, this was done by the Oshak Bank, the savings bank, The facility was distributed among generating companies to procure coal.
Today, out of 2 billion which were allocated in last year, we actually spent 2 million. Would be right to renew this credit line in order to provide the necessary resources so that we could be able to procure additional coal. This extra capital, again, it's incorrect to form this at the cost of tariff, because today tariff is at the level 88 complex, and next month, according to our expectations, will be a bit more than 90 complex. This is the level given the today's prices or cost of coal, about 100 hryvnia. It will cover about 20 complex of not net monetary flow, but operational margin, when the enterprises can take care of the maintenance, repair of their equipment, and actually partially accumulate coal and at the warehouse or storehouses, the warehouses. But for this building, it would be normal when the funds are allocated from outside, when there is some reserve. For some time it sits in the warehouse, then it's burned, and then they accumulate the funds which are used for the accumulation of new reserves. So over the last few months I put a lot of efforts in order to persuade the cabinet ministers, following the example of 2014, those funds be allocated for the generation part to be able to procure the coal. I was talking with the Vice Minister, Prime Minister Vyshevsky, Prime Minister, and seemingly they understand this need, but for the unknown reasons to me, there is some kind of somehow they delayed the decision. And let's say my answer to that we won't be able to distribute that money, and the answer that we last year managed to do that. We understand which power plants require the additional reserves of coal, and according to this proportion we are going to distribute the coal. My opinion is that this criticism is not always objective, and so far they do not they failed to resolve this issue. Because in fact 3 months is rather a long period of time, but taking into consideration that we have to put another 1 million tons of coal to the warehouse in addition to the amount which is being burned. You can see what kind of temperature we have outside, taking into consideration that 5 nuclear power units are idling, and the heat lines and the thermal TPPs, or thermal power plants, steam generation are actually the major burden lies on them. And taking into consideration this temperature, outside temperature, it would be difficult to accumulate the reserve, because we are burning 85 tons daily. Of course, we try to balance the situation with bringing additional reserves, but our task was to burn 60-65, and then to bring to the plants, and 20 of that to put to the warehouses. With those high temperatures, it could be difficult to do. Let's see how what the situation will be in the near future. Of course, we can increase the deliveries, but this is a question. Next slide. Well, maybe somebody has fallen asleep. Next slide, please. Oh, well, this is what pertains to the reserves of natural gas. Today we have a bit more, and it's kind of outdated diagram. Daily we actually pump to the warehouse about 30 million cubic meters. We are going to place it on our website. As compared to last year, we are lagging behind a bit. Again, it seems to me it would be reasonable. There is another slide, by the way. No, back please. One, yeah. So this consumption this year is minus 25% as compared to the previous year. Of course, this as per today, taking into consideration that the first half a year was a bit warmer. Minus 25% is a considerable amount. Mainly it is related to industry, and for the population minus 20% is rather much. And the decrease of the consumption is because of the temperature. We understand the industry, we understand that all too well is not all the enterprises are operating. And to some extent, I hope that a certain part of this decrease of consumption can be explained by the increase of the energy efficiency, so to say. So the situation is, well, it's not directly connected with that, but I understand that the budgetary enterprises which are from gas to only solid fuel, and the population try to get their houses warmer, and the Kiev administration declared the replacement of windows, for example. In some places, you know, that they do not provide the supply of hot water for different reasons. This consumption decreases. And here, this is the pace of pumping, or the tempo of piping by the beginning of the heating season. We are going to pump up to 19 billion cubic meters of gas. This is technologically possible. Well, everything depends on the availability of necessary funds without involvement of considerable resources from outside. Having the internal resources and the funds available today, we can reach the level of 14.5 billion. In order to increase the reserves up to 19 billion cubic meters, we need additional $1 billion, about which we are negotiating. We are involved negotiating with the World Bank, Siberia, and other donors. It's kind of a weekly conference discussions. The European Commission, the donors last week, and during my visit to the United States, I also met with the leaders of some financial institutions. I understand they all are very well understand the situation, and they hope that this function will be shouldered by IMF. First of all, IMF says that they provided rather considerable resources, and we try to involve our Minister of Finance and the National Bank of Ukraine, and I believe that this resource, somewhere around $1 billion, will be provided under sovereign guarantees, and that was planned in our budget. So, speaking in principle, there are all the tools necessary for that. The question is to obtain liquidity. Our European American partners understand the terms, I mean the period of time, and what is associated with pumping the gas, and after talking to them, I hope that they understand all the technical details. Today we have the group of American and Canadian power engineers, experts, who work on the so-called anti-crisis plan, going through the autumn and winter season. So over the next 2 or 3 weeks, they will come up with a rather detailed document, their recommendations, what has to be done. So my team works on a regular basis, constantly, and I meet with them on a weekly basis. And I believe that this group will also help us to explain all the facts and the need of this financial assistance. Those are our payments for the natural gas. Very interesting slide, very considerable problem when you're talking about natural gas. You see the level of payments. or covering our coverage, payment coverage. You see how the population pays, and you see the increase from 50 to 70%. So the major problem is like our money paid, and as you can see, there is a indebtedness on the part of the generating organization. Maybe you read the information that the Kyiv Energo did not pay to Naftogaz rather substantial amounts of money, depending on whether they calculate, including the penalties or without those. This sum fluctuates from 3 to 4 billion. This is a rather big sum of money, and this is a major problem. Naftogaz, having this money, they could procure additionally for this 4 billion about 800 million cubic meters. Without this money, they have to to take this money from outside. This is the payment for electric power. The situation very similar to the previous one. A lot has been done in order to bring this level of calculation higher than 90%. Now this level is close to 100%, owing to the work done regarding the payment from the ATO zone. You remember during the last heating season, the payments from the ATO zone was at rather low level, together with the National Committee for Energy and the Cabinet of Ministers to resolve this problem. And monthly we did not receive 1.5 billion hryvnia from there, but this information maybe was not noticed, but this is very important step and very important result. That means additionally about 1.5 billion, which can be used for the purchase or procurement of coal and maintenance and payment of sellers, etc., etc. And after generation, they will be distributed to coal enterprises, and the electric power market is filled with the funds. So a lack of payment in total is 8 plus million hryvnia, which did not reach the market, and the generation part of that could not take care of the reserves or to carry out their function. Well, we are working rather actively along those lines, and I believe that at this point of time, at least in the electric power sector, to a major extent we resolve this problem. In the gas sector, we still have this problem. You heard that we adopted the corresponding laws, which gives the right to the Naftogaz to disconnect some of the consumers, and they're working on this today. The major problem is, as you could see, well, this is the calculation. There is another problem in the electric power supply, the water channels. But together with the National Committee of Energy, we developed the algorithm which will allow us to decrease the acuteness of this problem. This problem, which has been in existence for decades, and nobody was resolving that, and the major non-payers are the water channels and the heat supply enterprise. As regards the statistical data, we're going, as I mentioned before, we're going to update it on a regular basis and place it on our website. And those who would be interested in following how actively we are preparing ourselves for the heating season, as I mentioned before, mainly this work associated with information reserves, to increase the level of the collection of money from consumers, and the change in the structure of generation towards the cheaper resources and available resources. So we are working to resolve those issues. Should you have any questions, I'm prepared to take those regarding our preparation for the heating season. Okay. I would also like to talk about Ukrenergo, because there was quite a big amount of information regarding the transformers. I would like to touch upon that issue as well. So let's start with the questions, but I believe they will come back. Well, maybe you can make your statement what you would like to say, then we will switch over to question and answers. Okay, I understand. Regarding transformers, in fact, you can see that we rather actively are preparing for the winter season. I understand that over this preparatory period, which is not obvious yet, we are talking about the decrease of consumption of gas at the cost of increasing the electric power consumption. You can see that different percentages of decrease and increase 3-4%. We always declare that the night tariff for a long period of time will be rather low or privileged terms. No easy terms. It depends on the internal, let's say, consumption indicators during the day, which is a very big problem for the energy sector, which is really kind of banal, let's say, easy problem for the consumers. They can wash your linen, let's say, anytime during the day, but many 20% of the people have the meters which do not allow them to they take the readings of the consumption of electric power on an hourly basis. We have to meter that to measure that when we have a peak of consumption, and during the night there is some kind of period between the 5 and 10 p.m. So difference is during this peak period 50%. If we have the load about 13 during the night, 13,000 megawatt, but during the peak hours it could be 19 or 20. So those additional 5-6 gigawatt of power must be included, and this inclusion additional on the coal, etc., etc. There's a big problem for the system. If we manage to balance off the level of this kind of the schedule of consumption, like is being done in Europe and United States, the people actually consume more energy when it's more, let's say, not only convenient but beneficial to them. We can see that many consumers start to think when they should switch to which kind of heating they should provide for their apartments or houses, because the natural gas prices skyrocketed, and in order to come close to some of the global prices, in the long perspective, we are going to move toward that end, and again, those are the requirements or demands on the part of IMF. Electric power is considerably cheaper today, and the cost of the night tariff, this is going to be still cheaper. And it seems to me this is a good idea to provide heating and form on the electric power. And accordingly, we understand that consumption can increase. So, first of all, we have to form the possibility to consume this power. Already managed in Kiev, the same line exists between Zaporizhzhia and Kakhovka. There are some additional lines which will allow us to provide additional capacity of the Khmelnytsky, Rovno, NPPs, and again to bring to the end consumer user. Over the last 20 years, we invested not enough money into the networks. Just few figures: 70% of the same transformers which we are talking a lot about, they are more than 25 years of age. And very powerful transformers, their age is more than 40 years. You heard that we are talking about the replacement of big number of transformers. We are going to replace only 36 transformers, 18 of which will be replaced at the cost of the different programs, BRD and whatever else. And actually the creditors actually and they exercise control over this task. The tenders were not announced yet, with any kind of references to some prices and comparison of Siemens to some percentage. I can understand the the basis for that. I asked them to make it maximum public, involving the Minister of Finance, everybody else. So everybody could see who was awarded who became the winner in the tender, etc. Why? I can see they big attention toward that because they were talking about investment program. When a lot of money was just stolen, and it's not only typical for Укренерго, Укргазводобывание, Семенергоатом. We are talking about huge amounts of money. Again, Energoatom, they have the millions, let's say, high program. People have to know where the money is spent or what for. And when we are talking, for example, that over this year we are witnessing the replacement of only 5% of the transformers, which I already mentioned. They are too old. 5% is going to be replaced within 20 years, given this pace of developments, to replace all of those transformers. And if you talk to the professionals, experts, we are talking about the major channel for filling the energy system, which generates the let's say the voltage, And since we have the outdated equipment, in order to balance off or to level off, to balance the voltage, we specifically switch on the power plants. We burn the gas, or we burn the coal. And the lines which we are building now, which were not existent, they did not provide it in a strict, let's say, capacity. We are talking about billions of kilowatts. We can make calculations over the last 5 years, the amount of the energy which was not provided by the Khmelnytsky, Rivne, and the Parisian PPs. Well, approximately it could cost $500 million, which was not provided to the system. Instead, we burn the natural gas and coal, etc. That's why to talk today about the need of those steps is not objective, I believe. And the prices, I absolutely agree. The price must be the lowest possible. Whoever can propose the lowest price. If there are some other generators or producers who can propose a lower price, they can win the tender. Let this tender be a public one, and we will close this issue by this.
Speaking of the transformers, there was a story published recently about a story with Energoatom, and the program was reviewed for 2015-2020, and it was never approved. Instead, there is a program I mentioned about that exists, and it is about transformers necessary to improve the throughput capacity. In Zaporizhia, it will provide for additional 700 megawatts of capacity, generation capacity, and it will provide for some $700 million savings. I think this is necessary to do. It should be done. And why there is panic about funds used for the purchase of transformers? It will provide possibility of improving systems and reducing coal consumption. It will provide for lesser loads in the winter season. And for those of you living nearby Kyiv and suburbs, you know that there are certain limits to consumption range. So other alternatives is, just spend it on coal. Either we improve our transmission systems, or we need to buy more coal. Yeah, it is necessary to support state-owned coal mines and miners there, but there are other ways of doing it. There is the coalition agreements signed by all the political forces that says about 20% reduction of subsidies to coal mines. Until recently, it was about 5 million hryvnias that were spent to support through subsidies these coal mines. So a 20% reduction will mean a lot. Even such subsidizing will not resolve the problems in the sector. Complex geological conditions will persist and remain, and there will always be a need for new equipment. It will be necessary to prepare horizons and layers for production. And this is a way like we try to spit against the wind. The mines are in really hard situation, and we prepared the program that we discussed with trade unions and with all relevant authorities, and being a responsible official myself. Besides the trade union you mentioned, Mr. Mihailo, there are also other 4 influential trade unions that represent quite a lot of miners. And speaking of subsidies, again, the Minister of Finance has already expressed its concerns over a huge amount of subsidies needed and not available in the budget. And so there was also an idea to increase the price to provide better payoffs. But on the other hand, we have coal that has been used without payment. The D-taxi owes more than 300 million hryvnias for the coal already delivered to them in 2015. And there is even more that the company has for the previous years. And this really limits our capacity to reduce our indebtedness before coal miners. And this is just one side of the coin. Another idea is that the state, as the owner of those coal mines or a shareholder in these, needs to ensure these operate efficiently, so that normal market price would be exacted on them. If you do understand it, that in terms of new equipment purchase, probably not a single purchase had been made throughout the 6 months of 2015. And the current prices, they cannot be deemed market ones. And surely those coal mines that are more efficient, they work with a price of say 1,100, something about that. And if we go to increase prices on coal, we'll be forced to increase prices on electricity, and this will hit against the industry and the population. And the industry now has tariffs that are 15 to 20% higher than those in the EU already. And that's where we will draw huge losses and will reduce competitiveness. The population, unfortunately, pays just proportion to the real price, but unfortunately we do need to heed the social conditions of today. And I think that the targeted program suggested by the Cabinet of Ministers provides adequate solutions. Moreover, it has been supported by all the coalition members. We've involved the Big Four representatives to additionally refine the coal mining industry development program, and we hope that it will be finally endorsed by the Cabinet. And this should be a very quick decision to endorse it, given the arrears in salary payments. Thank you, Minister.
Your questions. Irina Shevchenko, can you clarify the, let's say, payments, collection payments from the ETO zone? You're talking about the government-controlled areas When I'm talking about ITO zone, those are non-controlled by the government territories from point of view of the power, energy, and gas. Yeah. Okay. Who actually pays from the government non-controlled territory? No, nobody. I just mentioned that they do not pay. You said that they over the last few months they start to pay. No, we just reformatted their approach to the sales. Now they deliver the energy to the government-controlled territory. To the non-controlled by the government territory, we actually supply a small amount of the energy to Lugansk area. In the majority of Lugansk region and Donetsk region, the local generators supply the energy to installations, and some of the energy is supplied by Russia. But we do not pay for this energy. We do not have anything to do with that. Starting with May, the power lines go into the non-controlled territories by Ukraine. They were officially disconnected by both parties, and they brought in another 3 million hryvnia to energy market. This is the work which had to be done. You understand that to persuade the Russians to disconnect those lines, Ilya Trashchenko, the news of Donbass, can you tell us what about the preparation for the heating season on the liberated territories of Donbass, in the frontline territories like Avdiivka and Petsky? And one more question: 1 month ago, the head of militia in northern Lugansk region, Naumika, said there is some program on power engineering where the trains will go to and fro through the territory of ATO. And he said that this kind of carriage of coal was approved by your ministry, ATO, and others. So what is a program which we bring the coal to the occupied territories and back? In fact, the preparation takes place for the heating season takes place all over Ukraine. At this point of time, we repair the power transmission lines, electric power transmission lines from Lugansk TPP, which connects different districts of Lugansk region. Perhaps, well, you have to know that the majority of the mines, for example, in Permomaisk or Krasnoarmeysk and further on, well, the majority of the mines are located not far from the contact line. Some of them, like Permomaisk, just close to front line, and some of the mines are the military guys take them, then liberate them. This territory is provided with electric power, so all the mines are operational. We have the water drainage and the ventilation. Those territories are provided with electric power, supplied with electric power. Recently I met with Mr. Zborivsky. We discussed with him the preparation of the heating lines before the heating season starts. We understand the problems to provide the heat to those territories, which is one of the key issues during the heating season or the preparation period. There are several options to provide the coal to those power plants, and the allocation of some money for the maintenance repair works, and we are working on those issues. We are going to bring to the attention to the Wholesale Market Council, and we hope this will be supported. From the point of view of heat of the Lysychansk district and that area, we are rather active to discuss this issue. So far in Lugansk region, we do not have a new manager, the head of the regional administration. I believe we will have him soon, and we will be actively involved in the preparation for the heating season there. Speaking about the kind of carriage of coal, or movement of coal, indeed there was a lot of meetings regarding discussing the issue of taking coal from the occupied territories, together with the border guards and the state fiscal service and the anti-terrorist center. We came up with a special procedure. The minister actually generated a list of the buyers of this coal, those who can buy this coal, but the whole work related to the inspection of the shippers, the minister cannot take care of that. We do not know from the legal point of view those companies which are registered on the Ukraine territory and who pay to the banking system of Ukraine and actually transfer the money to the respective accounts. We do not have an approach to the territory which is not controlled by the government of Ukraine. That's why the SBU and in fact and the state fiscal service, they have a procedure how to check the suppliers. This is their already part of the issues. We have kind of divided the zones of responsibility. We are buyers, and the suppliers are checked mostly by the state fiscal service and SBU. They have to confirm that those companies paid taxes, etc., etc. We have only 15 minutes till the end of our briefing and 5 questions. You said that in winter the major load will be on the TPPs and in winter. In winter mostly the NPPs, nuclear power plants, will have to increase their capacity to 2 gigawatts. Naturally, do you foresee in this context increase of the load on TPPs? No. I would like to say that the load on TPPs today is higher than it will be in December. I agree that you may. Can you forecast or foresee deficiency or deficit of the capacities during to the increase of the load and the TPP and combined heat and power plants? Because as far as I know, there is the resolution of the cabinet to close those mines. One of them, Rodninska, which is close to the ATO zone. There are several hundred personnel, 730. Okay, where they'll be given some jobs, will be some compensation measures, Speaking about the closure, you understand, in order to submit to the cabinet ministers and agree with them, there is a certain procedure. They have to be coordinated. All those steps must be coordinated with the local councils. Speaking in principle, of course, they're going to close only those the mines which are not promising, which are on the they're not which is unreasonable to operate. They are not closed yet. I'm sorry. We are talking about to transfer them to the so-called Group 3. We are going to work on the project how to close those mines. It will take about at least 1 year to do that. In fact, those mines, the general directors of those associations, they understand whether we are going to close those because they're depleted. And the prospects for the recovery or the production of coal from those mines are minimum. And the main specialization, those who work under the surface, the rule have been transferred to the neighboring mines. For example, in the Volyn area, we understand that at the expense of the TENS, Novovolynsk mine, which is being the building expanded that. So one of the top priority tasks is to commission this mine as soon as possible. You are talking about Rodninsk, it's part of the association, but today, at this point of time, there is a need to more thoroughly take care of those people who are available today. For example, Presamix Kugilia, about 5,600 people working, and they produce less than 1,000 tons per day. Just for your general understanding, they had to produce to be cost effective at least 4,000 tons per day, and they cannot do that because there is a problem with the preparation of the straightener and the cover and the funds. We are just paying their salary, and they cannot produce or recover enough amount of the sufficient amount of coal. We import anthracite. Again, you're mistaken. We are talking about different grades of coal. Black coal, anthracite, whatever. Next question. Mikhail Volnets, member of the Collegium of Energy and Coal, would be difficult to go through this heating period of 2015 and 16 because we have 1.5 for TPP together with the CHPP. Critical amount is 1.7. If we had 2.6, it would be much better, definitely. I showed you the schedule. We procured for $20 billion coal from abroad. We'll have to buy additional for more than 5 billion hryvnia. Maybe you should approve the government, which does not support you, to give the jobs your own personnel and switch and to go through this winter period more or less successfully. You know, in case of warm winter, the deficit will be 3 to 4 gigawatts. In case of cold winter, 3.4. Out of 20 units, 3 or 4 are not operational. But we're not talking about the quality of the maintenance and DPPs. They will start to be closed, and the maneuverability and the insurance was put in a very correct question. We'll start to shut down the NPP power units. It would be better to objectively talk what's going on. It's better to unite our efforts. A member of the Collegium, when the Prime Minister comes, you do not invite me because to give me a chance to. You have not talked. There is a sectoral agreement within which you have to agree this issue because we were going to have very serious problems. And the questions are as follows. Last year, for this period of time, we produced our own coal, 40.5 million tons, and now at 19.2 over the 6 months. There are some difficulties with transportation. Will you be able to come up to the terms with the railroads because the railroad they rejected or refused to carry the coal? No, they did not. They could not do that due to the new procedure administering of VAT. The customers could not pay. So they could pay, but they automatically, well, we're talking about VAT, which they had to pay for those accounts. They will not be taking into consideration their payment of their loans. So the situation much more difficult or complex. Speaking about the figures, in the winter you said that we lack 3 gigawatt of the capacity, or 4. I can't agree with you because today, we during the peak hours we consume about 9 gigawatt of capacities in winter. Remember in 2012 when the whole Ukraine was covered with heavy snow, and this is historic maximum over the several years period of several years was extreme situation. The load on the heat generation was up to 12 gigawatts, but that was absolutely unbelievable and incredible situation. As a rule, in winter, the load is within 9.5 to 10 gigawatts. That's why 9 gigawatts, which we have today, is quite quite enough for the winter period. Moreover, in winter we'll have additional 2 gigawatts of the NPP's capacities, maybe 1 gigawatt even more of thermal, of the combined heat and heat and power plants, which provide the heat and the power, electric power. So I would not support you in this pessimistic scenario. We need a maximum to have more than 2, and if you manage to have more than 2 and 7, I agree with you. But it's a very difficult task to bring the necessary, the amount of need. Of course, we need the funds, we need the money, we need to resolve the logistic tasks. Moreover, in the end of the story, we're going to import coal from abroad. And yesterday I had a meeting with the South African Republic ambassador, and I'm certain that you're going to again to raise a panic that there is some abuse or whatever. But I believe that we'll be able to be transparent in our procurement of coal. The price in the South Africa is at the level of $52–53 in South African Republic. Plus logistics, plus transportation, $12–13, depending on the size of the vessel. Carried by king size or some other, plus reshipment in the port of Odessa and transportation of territory to Ukraine. On the whole, we are talking about $80 price. So last year, coal cost $100, and this year $80. Speaking about the currency rate, you can guess, if you can. I mean, there are some other sources of supply. The average cost of anthracite or black coal, we evaluated the level of 1,360 and 370 hryvnia without VAT and without transportation and territory Ukraine. So just the cost of the coal.
Olena Luskun, UBR channel, you said of the population saving a bit on the consumption of resources. Is the government going to reduce consumption level for subsidy calculation purposes? From what I remember, the Ministry for Social Policy makes its calculation based on the income level. And I think it will be the major criterion to calculate the level of subsidy. That's quite a complex computation. It also involves consumption levels, but norms of consumption. But when we come to natural gas consumption level, though this is not my area of responsibility, I can tell you that based on my experience of contacts with the National Regulatory Commission, they have no plans of changing subsidy requirements. They had some internal discussions regarding whether these indicators are justified, and we may say that generally across the board in Ukraine the norms have been really rather rational, despite some differences between individual regions. Two more questions. Vitaly Sizov, Public TV of Donbass. How would you evaluate the new piece of legislation on regulatory authority? How it is unbiased and whether it is not adopted in interest of some political force? In my view, it is entirely democratic, and the key discussion was about the procedure of National Regulatory Commission members' appointment. In my view, this is entirely a political consideration. All other positions and provisions regarding disclosure of information, transparency, access of public, and other things, they surely comply with the third energy package, and they have been pre-agreed with the energy community. We involved external advisors to advise on that, and it is my conviction that it's a substantial and good document It was suggested for consideration. There were some critical errors regarding the member nomination procedure. But again, I think it is a political decision, and as of the moment, the politicians have not come to the pre-agreed and joint position. They will have to elaborate it. Again, you probably know that it was approved by the cabinet, by the Verkhovna Rada Committee on Energy Sector and Fuel Sector. He went through quite a lot of levels of expertise. You mean the second version, the second variant, and we already had its motion to the Parliament after the Cabinet of Ministers. The version you mentioned was, it appeared because of entirely, because of different reasons, because some of the MPs said they had no time to page through the document, and then say Ms. Wojcicka said that she and her colleagues were not involved in the elaboration of the draft legislation, but essentially they in the Fuel and Energy Committee in the Parliament, they had all the time and possibility to make their input, and they did not. So, well, we will work. Artyom Belousov, Union News Agency. There was a suggestion about the share package in Ukrenergo be transferred tomorrow. Well, I would not oppose that. I would not oppose privatization of the company. I am convinced that a private owner would be more efficient as manager of this company. But again, given the current problems they have, that include the use of coal produced by state-owned mines, it means that the new owner would have to sign this, and at the moment we could not use the coal that they would produce nowhere but for Volodymyr HES. So I'm against such type of transfer because, again, I'm not against privatization, but the transfer should be, well, if there is a buyer inside, but I would oppose just taking shares from me and simply transferring it to someone else. It will open a corporate war. At the moment we are doing all necessary preparations, we purchase coal. If it is about Balabanov not be to liking of many others, okay, then let's start a competition to his office, and let's do it the way we did it with Ukernafta, with Ukrtransnafta. Okay, if there are better managers, let them come in. But again, as long as this company is still with the ministry, I have some minimal chance of providing certain instructions to them. The state has just 7%, 6 or 7% share in it, and there is a supervisory board there. If they are not content with Balabanov, let them find another management. Speaking of audit, I initiated auditing of them myself. We easily and gladly meet everyone with potential interest in it, but there are certain obligations to provide necessary volumes of coal for them. There are problems with it. Tripilla station has 3 units operating and produces 900 megawatts, and they've just started firing up the first unit at Zmyivska thermal power plant. So if there are potential owners ready to take the commitments and ready to pay decent money for that, we can talk with them. Because with all problems, the enterprises were capable of producing about 30% of thermal energy produced in Ukraine. They can generate at least 1 billion kilowatts, at least. And this is quite a serious enterprise. And it requires very meticulous approach. I think that also it is necessary to somehow oppose the DTEC at some
I mentioned that we are not Central Energy at this point to support the energy system. We don't have anything to support that, both price-wise and according to the amount of the generation and the volume of work. I understand the cost. Having access to Central Energy, I know the cost, and this is the only argument which I have in order to persuade DTEC that their expectation of tariff 99 complex of 1.20 hryvnia, they're not objective, because Central Energy can work with the prime cost much lower, and we understand all too well that in fact the efficiency of work of DTEC is rather higher because they have more operational power units and they more efficiently use what they have, and actually their coal mines are more efficiently operating and they have a better geology. I believe Mr. Volodymyr can support me in that. They invested a lot of money. Of course, they received the profit on they recovered some money on the investments. So in the public reports of DTEC, you can find all those figures. It's easier to check those and to understand that in fact this is rather profitable business. Moreover, again, I can understand why they have 3 billion debt, which they force us to service today. And this is one of the problems of they need to increase the tariffs. So they need to service the debt which they accumulated. And they cannot understand what they spend money for within the framework of generation and the coal segment. Because those two segments over the last 5 years being donors, they were making money. They had a positive money flow which they generated. I cannot understand what for they can involve 3 more billion hryvnia. Thank you very much. We came to the end of our working day in our press center. Thank you very much. See you again.